So what I'm gonna show you guys is I've mentioned it earlier where there was a there was a discussion around Twitter with a couple of Japanese players regarding Ken on the first player side versus Ken on the second player side. Now, what a lot of people don't know is when it comes to doing setups, uh, for example, when it comes to doing setups of like post Super 3, it matters what side you're on. So it matters in the sense of what player side you're on. So you'll see right here, what I'm about to show you is the minor difference between the two sides. Well, actually not the minor difference, the big difference, actually. So you'll see right here, I'm gonna do a specific setup, which will be low forward into light kick tatsu. Now what that does is it's gonna space out Ken just enough so that when I normal jump forward, one of the player Ken on the one player side will cross up, while the player on the two player side will not. So this one right here is the first player side, and this one right here is the second player side. Because you can see right here, the white gi is 2p, and the gray gi is 1p. Okay, so I'm gonna count out the frames, and it should be around the 35th frame where you see the big difference. So first on the one player side. Sorry, there's no audio, but you guys can hold that shit. Oops. Okay. So again, low forward tatsu to set it up. Now I'm going to pause it. I'm going to hold forward. So when he crouches, that's where I'm going to start counting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. Okay? So that's at the 35th frame where you see that. Now for the two player Ken, same idea. I'm gonna set it up with low forward tatsu, and then when he starts crouching, that's when I start counting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 20, that's 6, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And you see that? And that goes to show it's one of the fundamental differences when it comes to Ken on the one player side versus Ken on the two player side. Not necessarily what side they're on in terms of the screen, but what side they're on in terms of what character side they're on. So, so this goes to show you that whenever you see Japanese tournaments, it always ends up with the players meeting first and trying to figure out which side to choose. You know, which player side they want to play on. So the tendency is if they tend to win that rock paper scissors, they always pick the first player side just to take away that type of setup with Ken because it makes it a lot more obvious. So going back, you'll notice with the super, it plays a big role in terms of the super. Oops, sorry. Let me do this. Oh no. Okay. All right, so we'll start with the first player side. Well, actually, we'll start with the second player. Okay. And you'll see that when I do the low forward into super, both sides are gonna do it, and I'm gonna super jump, and look at the difference. The one player side crosses up, while the second player side does not. Now this goes back even to this goes to show that it works even with a setup, like even any type of setup that you do. Let me get this down. So, for example, if I was to whiff a standing strong or do any other type of whiff, You see the difference? Two-player Ken is on the same side while one-player Ken is on the opposite side. Now again, we can try any other type of setup and it doesn't matter. It always ends up with with one player Ken being on the other side while two-player Ken being on the same side. So, shit. Shit, shit, shit. Okay? So, I believe, honestly, one of the things that makes the difference for this is the fact that on two-player Ken's side, I believe that his animation is a little bit faster. Well, not his animation, but his the speed of his super. So I'm gonna try to pull up an image here. Because looking at this, looking at this image, you can see that the one player Ken is not as fast as the second player Ken. So in terms of I mean I'm assuming it also plays a role in terms of the wake up frames, but for the most part, uh, the two player Ken's animation for the super is a lot faster. Well, not a lot faster, like a frame faster than one player Ken's super. So let me try to look at it over here. So again, you see the two player Ken, he's already practically done with the animation. And then in certain instances, you see, let me look at the frames actually. 49. Yeah, so with one player, his animation is a little bit faster, I believe, by about one frame. It's a little hard to tell though, because I try to implement the frame data, but it only works for one player, for the first player side. And you can see, probably see it right here. Shit. You can see when it comes to the pressing the standing strong. Well, you already see the 9 hit screen on the first player side, whereas on the second player side, well, actually you do see it right here. I'm sorry. Apologize about that. It's about one frame faster on the first player side. Probably means that when it comes to doing the super on one player, that's probably the fundamental reason why Ken Ken crosses up rather than two player Ken crossing up. So just a little recap right here. I know I probably blew your minds just now. That's actually a good question. One of the main things is that this can sort of apply. I mean, there's not necessarily a cross up with certain characters that applies to them, but more so with the combos. So, for example, with Urian, uh, it's some of it is based on some of his combos are based on what player side he's on or what character side he's on. It makes a difference if he's on the second player side on the screen versus if Ken is on the one player side. So you really have to dig deep to find those little nuances. So for example, if you're like a Urian main, you would really want to understand, what setups work with Ken if he's on the one player side versus what setups work with Ken if he's on the second player side and vice versa. And in terms of both the character side and the player side. Now, if you want to find that little nuance, you can actually look up my Urian Unblockable video. And me and RKF, we discussed that like in length. There's a timestamp on the video, so you can look that up and you'll hear more of a discussion on it. And it just goes to show that the size, they do play a role in terms of the outcome of the match, in terms of, you know, what combos work, what setups work, so the fundamental thing with Ken versus Ken is that, when you play a Ken mirror, you want to make sure you're on first player side. So it makes it a lot harder to deal with the setups afterwards. So here's an extra one. Oh shit. And you can see that Ken always lands, one player Ken always lands on the second side, while two-player Ken lands on the same side. So if I end up finding any more info about this, I'll definitely post an annotation about it in the video. But for those of you who've seen Ken versus Ken and think that the sides don't matter, they do matter. Even with other characters, they do matter. So for example, with Urian, it does matter. So keep that in mind the next time you want to play a Ken mirror or play Urian versus Ken or something to that nature. Or if you do end up finding something interesting in terms of the player sides, let me know in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're on stream, uh, keep this in mind the next time you play a Ken mirror. So.